Story 1. Making financial decisions based around the 3-paycheck month. If you are paid every 2 weeks, most months you receive 2 paychecks, and all your monthly bills and budgeting are based on those 2 paychecks. However, twice a year, there are 3 paydays in a month, and that's when you can actually solve problems. That's when you can register the car, fix the dryer, or get the cat spayed. The other 10 months, you are doing maintenance and trying to scrape by. In 3-paycheck months, you can actually try to fix problems. Story 2, more of a funny incident, but I was the unfortunate one. My husband, at the time still my boyfriend, took me out to a very nice restaurant. The waiter asked if I wanted pepper on my Caesar salad that was just made tableside. I said sure, and he went about it. The thing is, I didn't know you had to say stop. My husband slowly realized this, but decided to see it play out. He eventually said that I needed to say stop. I just thought a Caesar salad was made this way, as it was my first time even eating a salad that wasn't just iceberg lettuce and ranch dressing. It still tasted fine, just with a little bit too much pepper. Haha. Story 3. I was adopted at age 7. I lived in extreme poverty, and then all of a sudden I lived with a doctor who bought gifts for birthdays and Christmas. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know you could go to the store to get food. I just thought you went to the church and had to pray before they gave you a bag of food. Story 4. When the family had people over for dinner, if they ended the prayer before the meal with family, hold back, amen, it was a signal to let the children know that they don't have enough food for everyone. So, take smaller servings and let the guests get a regular serving. They were always generous to their friends and didn't let their lack of funds embarrass them when doing so. Story 5. Rich people of Reddit who want to marry someone significantly poorer. Hello. Edit. Figures my most upvoted comment on Reddit is me being a gold digger, but I will take it as a win since I got gold. Story 6. Honestly, food insecurity. When we were first married, she would get visibly uneasy if the food in the house was running low. She never overate or anything. She was just always concerned about it. A lot of times, when she was younger, she went hungry. On the humorous side, though, she hates camping. Her answer is always the same. I camped because it was fun. She camped because they couldn't afford hotels. Story 7. She and her mother lived with her grandfather to avoid being homeless because her grandfather owned a house. She was putting community college payments on her credit card and accumulating debt with it. I paid off her credit cards when we were dating, and she cried because I was so nice. It was only about $1,300. I bought a condo, then we got married, and then we bought a house. I never really considered myself wealthy until I started dating her and learned that a trip to Wendy's was a treat. I grew up middle class, and we are currently middle class. Story 8. The prevailing mindset in his community growing up was that insurance was something only rich people had. Not health insurance, mind you, well, not just health insurance. Auto insurance. Going without it was a way of life for most everyone he knew. Story 9. I am not well off, but my stepfather is. I was raised by a single mom who spent money on everything, and bills were always behind. She just couldn't manage her money at all. In her 50s, she met and married a multimillionaire. We are in Middle America, so that goes further than maybe in a lot of areas. They have given themselves a $10,000 monthly budget to live on, living on interest, and own their home. Anyway, once my mom met him and they got all her finances situated and paid off, she won't spend a penny. He spends like it is going out of style. He has actually begged me to take her shopping to get clothes and accessories. She won't do it. She spent more when she was a single mom with nothing. It makes no sense to me. At least buy a new outfit. She is hell-bent on not using a penny of his money. They barely even have any groceries. If they have anything, it is because he buys it for them. She is a retired nurse that receives a retirement and social security, but she won't spend anything. She lives poorer now than at any other time in her life. Story 10. I didn't marry this woman, but when we started dating, she always wanted to relax at my place. Never hers, which was fine. But she gained 35 pounds in just a few months of dating. She was 100 pounds when we started dating. Not that it was a bad thing. I am a chubby man, and I was just glad she wasn't pregnant. Anyway, it turns out her family couldn't afford dinner sometimes. So suddenly, she had a place to eat every night and indulged herself. Story 11. I fell in love with my university best friend who really didn't have any money. When I got a job, for my birthday, I decided to plan a holiday and offered to bring him along. He doesn't know I'm in love with him at all, but maybe I should tell him. Thank you all for the love and support. Story 12. My partner and I are both poor, but different kinds of poor. She's never been homeless or without enough to eat, while I have. She's extremely frugal and hates buying anything we don't need. I feel a desperate need to stock up if we have any extra money, and it's a struggle for me not to fill our house with canned and dry goods in case we don't have enough money to buy food next month for some reason. It makes no sense, but my instinct is to hoard food because there just was never enough of it around growing up. Story 13. I'm not rich at all, but my husband came from a very poor Mexican village. He told me he used to shower outside because there was no indoor plumbing and used leaves as toilet paper. I mean, there's poor and there's my husband's previous life poor. He's been living in the United States for 12 years now, but when we first met, it was so interesting seeing life through his childlike eyes. Going to the cinema was a huge event for him. Heating food up in a microwave was a totally foreign concept. And staying at fancy hotels when we went on vacation was like, whoa. I still see him surprised by things now and then, and it just reminds me how much I take my middle-class status for granted. Story 14. Hamburger helper. She hates it because it would be her meal 5 times a week growing up. I had never even seen Hamburger Helper before I went to college and loved that stuff. 10 for $10 deals are awesome. Story 15. My significant other said, "Today I made rent," meaning today I've earned enough or accumulated enough to pay the rent. And I realized that this is a monthly accomplishment for someone with no fixed income or salary. Story 16. One of my ex-partners could pull in a lot of money, easily 2 or 3 times what I could. He was incredibly bad at saving this money. For example, he set himself up as a company to avoid paying a higher rate of tax, but then paid a large amount each month to an accounting company to handle his taxes, which he would do himself anyway because he did not trust them to get it right. He would pay for taxis from one end of the city to another or hire cars rather than use public transport. Flights canceled? He would book new ones, never bother to claim back on insurance. Buy a sports car, wreck it, sell it for scrap. He would work contracts and then take time off to work on his own startup, but spend every weekend just going out and buying drugs and alcohol. I thought it was really fun and wild at first. Haha, money really means nothing to you. But when we became a long-term couple, I started feeling like his mother. Man, will you not just fill out the insurance paperwork? Story 17. My husband grew up in a family where they were comfortable but on a strict budget. 6 kids and mom on disability. My family had no budget. One day we were at the grocery store and he always insists on walking up and down every aisle. I finally lost it because he was taking so long and asked him why he did it. Growing up, we could only spend $100 a week on groceries for all of us. I always had to put what I wanted back because we couldn't afford it. Now I can afford whatever I want, so I like to look at everything I could have. Took him 10 years to tell me this. I felt like a terrible person. I've had a few people comment that $100 a week is a huge budget and how is that a stretch? We live in a city with an extremely high cost of living. It's in the top 30 in the world. Getting a family of 4 fed for that much weekly would be a huge stretch here, and his family did an amazing job. Story 18. Not rich, but with a partner who was raised by a teen mom and grew up poor. Sometimes I just want rice and vegetables for dinner. That's a no from her. She won't go back. Story 19. I was with a girl for a while who grew up in a pretty broken home. It still surprises me just how bad her spending habits are. She racks up credit card debt like it's nothing. Story 20. Long-term dating. Pets. I was always surprised by the number of pets she and her family had living in the trailer and how much of a share of their income they spent on them. Story 21. Credit cards were avoided. For me growing up, we were encouraged to get a credit card in our name and use it as much as possible in order to build credit. There was always money to pay it off each month, so it made sense to build credit and collect airline miles or whatever the reward was back in the day. When we got together, She always used cash or a debit card. She had a credit card for emergencies and avoided using it otherwise. It took a long time to get her over her aversion and skepticism, though we were fortunate to have two good-paying jobs. It also taught me a healthy appreciation for what it means to have a financial cushion. Story 22. I dated a 1%er briefly. She was surprised I willingly went inside fast food restaurants. Edit. Since people are saying 1% is still a huge range in income, I just looked up her dad. He pulls in about $10 million a year. Story 23. I'm from a middle-class family, but my wife's parents are near billionaires. She was shocked about many things, that I consider the cost of food and groceries at all. They will go to gourmet food stores and spend over $1,000 and say things like, well, it's for food. We're ingesting this stuff. It should be the best. Booking non-first-class airfare on any long trip would be considered cruel and unusual punishment to her. No concerns about utilities or insurance premiums. No comparison shopping on routine things at all. Every vacation is the finest you can imagine, often bordering on ridiculous, with so many upsells on packages and bespoke items that it's just wasteful. No concept of debt and understanding of how normal people live. My wife was shocked when I saved things that get wet or muddy. She would just want to throw things like clothes and fine items in the trash when they were just lightly bruised. We're very much in love and have shown each other a lot. She enjoys hanging with my salt-of-the-earth mom more than her own family at this point. I like being spoiled here and there as well. It's a great mix. I've obviously adopted her standard of living. We met in medical school. She did a decent job of hiding her privilege. Our relationship grew out of our shared sense of humor and, of course, physical attraction. Story 24. Not super rich by any means, but my husband said he'll always be surprised about the following. How I lived off of $13,000 in 2011. Resilience to survive financially and pursue my dreams of being the first college graduate. How I didn't know what spinach was or tasted like until our first few dates, in addition to many other leafy greens. Story 25. My experience is from the opposite perspective. I was the poor one. It absolutely floored me how my wife acts when something broke, like a car, appliances, clothes, etc. As a child living below the poverty line, replacing a tire or other necessities was a disaster, requiring tricky trade-offs in the budget or just plain acceptance of how unfortunate you were. When my wife's phone broke, I went into full panic mode while she shrugged and said, "We can get a new one this afternoon." And then we did. Edit. Wow, I have received a lot of responses on this. By far my most upvoted comment. You guys made my day, thank you. I have seen a few repair it comments. Like many of you, I am also a Picasso or MacGyver of the duct tape and trash bag world. This skill helped me break into information technology. Sadly, the phone was beyond repair. Trust me, if I could have fixed it, I would have. And thank you for the silver. Last edit. You all are giving me too many medals. I am very flattered, but this is going to spoil me. Story 26. He was making good money but came from a poor family. One thing that surprised me was the lack of budgeting, no knowledge of a 401k or Roth IRA. Retirement seemed like something that he'd never get to do. So even though he made good money, he was starting to rack up credit card debt. Now he's much better at it than I am. He adores budgeting and looks forward to financial independence. Retire early. Story 27. I'm from a poorer family, not super poor, but my in-laws have a lot of money, so by comparison, I'm very poor, but I think I can answer for her. We have 2 young kids, and my wife was shocked when I said we should look for clothes and toys for them at local flea markets and garage sales. The idea never occurred to her that we could save money by getting some gently used items. She had never even been to a garage sale in her life. She has grown to love them and now questions whether it is worth it to buy any item new before running to Amazon or a store. Her parents think it's disgusting we make our kids wear clothes that another child had before, but they don't pay my bills. Story 28. I came from a relatively wealthy family as my dad started his own business and grew up poor, and my wife came from a lower income, blue-collar family. We got married out of college and neither of us made much money in the beginning. My biggest surprise was how she wanted to spend money. She was shocked when my mom bought her a pair of jeans for over $100 for her birthday. She couldn't understand spending that much on jeans. But she wanted a motorcycle for me, which I don't ride in the first place, and then a new furniture set, a new bed, and a new car. She wasn't concerned about savings or retirement, and she never wanted my parents' money for any of it. We are both way too proud for that. It took a long time for her to come around to having an emergency savings account, focusing on debt, and not needing unnecessary things. She eventually realized that her parents wouldn't be in such a terrible situation if their spending habits weren't so horrible. She still has those inclinations sometimes, though. We recently paid off my car, and she immediately thought I should get a new car.